Hey, hey, hey.
How's it going?
Yo, what is going on, dude?
The usual, man. Just staying busy. How you doing?
I'm doing quite well, I'd say. It's peak summer over here. It's been hot. It's been maybe even a little too hot, but freaking nice. Freaking nice. Pretty close to the water, so that doesn't hurt ever.
It's been pretty hot
Uh,
everywhere.
yeah,
The
yeah, it's
United States
true.
is having a rough go with that right now. Oh, well, a lot of countries are having a rough go with that right now, but it's pretty
Yeah,
hot everywhere.
yeah, we've been trying to keep cool. Get down by the water. Yeah, it's been a little while. Been a couple of weeks.
It has. I think it's been more than 2 weeks. I think it's been 3 weeks.
It's been 3 weeks. Our
Yeah.
last stream, yeah, was July 11.
Mm-hmm. And we have had a lot of things happen. Probably
We've
not
had
so much in the health and wellness industry.
no, I always like I was kind of looking for like just like recent news, and it's just trash.
There's
It's
nothing, right? There's like literally nothing. It's just
there's like
like
something about like there's a whole bunch of articles about monkeypox right now. Uh I'm just like looking for like recent news or updates or developments, and it's just like really poorly covered, poorly tracked, like as we know. Yeah, it's just kind of trash. So I thought like during this revamp, if you guys didn't notice, we kind of revamped the way that we're going to run this segment of the show from here on out. I thought, I don't know, while I was doing some research earlier to look through, like maybe we could just go through the monthly updates in health and fitness or health and wellness. And yeah, it's just shit. The the news, the reporting, the metrics, the really the eyes on it. And I think like just how many people like really care about it, or like the probably yeah the eyes that it draws or the number of clicks it gets. I don't know what the fuck the problem is, but
yeah, man. I mean, I keep watching the CDC website like a hawk, and it's just like it's not a socially accepted metric to talk about often. It's something everybody's very obviously aware of, but like, yeah, it's it's just like impossible to find any sort of structured mechanics on the direction that these things are going in, what's going on with the healthcare systems, and even when a certain virus had hit a couple of years ago, and the healthcare system was very overwhelmed and very overtaxed
hmm
and was very close to the brink of really just failing completely, depending on the state you're in and the healthcare network you were near, we still didn't get a lot of clarity or insight that was, I don't want to say the word honest, but that was just conveyed in an honest way,
yeah,
just like black and white, like excuse me, like, hey, here's the number of nurses we have, here's the number of doctors we have, here's the number of incoming patients that we have typically on a monthly basis, here's
yeah,
the wait times over a year over year basis, a month over month basis, like even just tracking wait time
yeah,
in the ER to get into the ER, to get into urgent care on a state by state basis as reported. Why are we not watching this stuff?
yeah,
Because it's gotten way too long. All my clients, yeah, 6 to 8 hour wait just to get into urgent care most of the time.
yeah,
Yeah, that's not good. So it's like we don't really have any of that. We have all of it with finance, right? And we're going to be talking about that later, but it's something that continues to go under the radar. It's and I was actually like hoping that it was just me being really stupid and that you were going to find something, honestly. Exercise. I was really like hoping you were going to be like, "Nope, you're just an idiot, dude. It's all right here." And I'm like, "Okay, great, awesome." But the fact that you didn't find anything is, I
yeah.
don't know.
No, like there must be yeah like some fucking admin keys to get to some of that data, or it's just like held behind closed doors, like the shit that we're looking for.
It's like, are they even reporting it? Are they even tracking it?
Yeah, that's another really good question because like I do agree, like some of it would be fucking tough to aggregate and report and collect and put together, but
You'd think like wait times in the ER, wait times in the urgent care. I mean, they track obesity to some capacity, right?
yeah,
Outside of
kind of,
the
yeah.
the scope of how effective they are with that, they're still tracking it, right, on a state by state basis. Um, so, yeah, it's tough because it's like, dude, we just had the biggest scare of all time of the healthcare system almost basically just imploding. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it was like the reverse repo market exploding in 2019, and people still don't know about that. It's like people still don't know that the healthcare system was so close. to where it's like, hey, you go there, you're not going to get helped. That's a
Mhm.
really scary situation. So, yeah, man, it's really tough because I would love to talk about this more like concretely with people, but you can only do so much by like hearsay and commonalities, like trends. You can only talk about trends so much.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I don't really know what metric would be the like most obvious thing outside of just prevalence with HPV, heart disease, diabetes. Those three things are really the only key metrics that they do track, and death rates monthly from those things. I think that's
Mhm.
it, to be honest with you. I think that's probably it. But think about it. You have no indicators, and if you do have any, they're lagging on children. It's a whole demographic you're missing out on. And
Mhm.
the healthcare network, if that falls because you don't have any indicators there, you have a ton more people dying because of said things. Because they can't be seen by the hospital anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like all of those are super duper duper lagging indicators, not good. It's like GDP, right? We just got our second quarter of negative GDP for the US. Great. We already knew this if you were paying attention, like way
Yeah.
back, way back earlier in the year. We talked
Yep.
about this in the
Could have
stream.
called it 3
There's
months
so
ago
many
probably.
things. There's
Yeah.
so many things that were pointing to this likely being the case. So hearing an economist say, "Oh, okay, well, that's a whole other discussion," whether or not people are actually talking about this being a recession. But
Yeah.
regardless, if someone as an economist comes in and says, "Oh, we're in a recession," it's like, "Great job, dude! You're able to look at two negative quarters of GDP."
Mhm.
There's nothing special about that. Where was the preparation? Where was the talk beforehand? So there's just a lot of lagging indicators. And they did. There are some things that they looked at that was a leading indicator in these things. But either way, it's weird. The more I get into finance, the more I realize that this stuff is lacking as it pertains to overall health, which is a big issue. And I'm not so sure why the CDC is not being that entity unless they're so overwhelmed with everything else they're doing with, the other virus and now monkeypox and this and that. I mean, who
Yeah.
knows? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, right? Maybe they truly are overwhelmed and they're just one organization and they can't do it. They don't have enough communication with the healthcare network. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a tangled mess.
Yep. That would not be surprising at all to me. That it's just like kind of getting done, but like just like too shitty or like not well enough to where like they're comfortable releasing like these metrics in like a straightforward or like plain way. Like they're fucking obfuscated and hidden and behind like all these admin doors where oh like you have to be whatever to like it's yeah it seems like a fucking mess and it like that adds up with like a lot of things I believe about like fucking big institutions like that. It just becomes like fucking bureaucracy and inefficient and like kind of shitty. Especially when yeah when you're trying to when you're trying to delegate to get like some of these metrics. Like I agree that it is I don't know if I'll even say hard. I'll just say intricate. Like
Yeah.
there is a way to do it. It's just like yeah.
Oddly enough, on the CDC website, on the adult obesity facts, like one of the main pages, it's been reviewed recently, May 17th, 2022, but it hasn't had an update since, oddly enough, March 2020.
Lol. That is funny.
It went obesity for adults went from 30.5% to 42% from 2017 to 2020, March of 2020, when the virus first hit.
Jesus.
So it's like, guys, this went up so much. Is it the scare tactics? Is it you don't like because we all know that that's clearly not something people are afraid of with all
Yeah.
these things being pushed around. Clearly, scaring people is not a concern. So what is with this aspect? So
Mhm.
yeah, man, it's really tough because it makes it even more difficult for people wanting to have honest conversations about this to do so without actual prevalent data that
Yeah.
is like concrete. Um, so that's tough, man. I mean, like I said, literally, I think the only thing I'd have to go off of is deaths via high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes. That's it.
Yeah, yikes. What was that can you tell me what that jump was again? From 2017 to 2020 in obesity?
Says from okay, so you ready for this? This is the whole stat
Mhm.
from 1999 to 2000, and then through 2017 to March 2020, U.S. obesity prevalence increased from 30.5% to 41.9%. During the same time, the prevalence of severe obesity increased from 4.7% to 9.2%. So we're saying 4.7% to 9.2% obesity increase from 1999 to 2000. And
Right.
then 2017 to 2020, they don't have a month in 2017, just
Yeah.
2017 through
Okay.
to March 2020. It went from 30.5% to 42%. It's like, dude,
Jesus.
imagine another 2 years of lowered activity levels,
Yeah.
increased stress, increased calorie intake, increased reliance on Uber Eats,
Yeah.
increased all these things that are
Yeah.
like we know are layered complexities as it pertains to someone not lowering their caloric intake or their net energy balance.
Yeah.
Dude, it also gets easier to gain weight the more you gain weight hormonally. Dude, not good. None of this is good.
Yeah. It's almost the exact same time frame, just like pre, like uh, pandemic conditions with lockdowns and shit, and work from home and sit at your computer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, dude, it's kind of interesting they picked 99 to 2000 because remember that was like the dot-com bubble burst. There was
Mm-hmm.
close to a recession. There was the whole Y2K thing, and people were stressed and worried.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, it makes sense, man. I mean, that's people's love language, you know. So the thing that's crazy, like you said, though, is 2020. It wasn't like, oh, this happened in 2020 in March and that was it. Like this has been getting worse. I've been talking to
Oh
people
yeah.
about their problems in various industries every day about for 3 years now after the virus has hit,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously before that. But I've never seen a more aggressive change in culture that I've seen as it pertains to food, people's relationship with it, and the prevalence of immediate and aggressive weight gain than from 2020 on. And every year so far, because we're now in 2022, 2020, we were like, okay, going into the 2021, it should be much better. No, it got way worse. 2022 this year, it's even more worse. There's even more reliance on Uber Eats. There's even more reliance on food. There's even worse relationship with these things. So I don't know why they're not putting this stuff out. I don't know how they put this stuff out, but they're slacking on it for sure. Because
Mm.
they were able to put out an article pretty quickly after all the way up until March 2020, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. They could comment up till there.
So I don't know where they got data from on that, you know what I mean, to put this out. So hopefully we see something in the next year. I'm hoping, but it's going to be disgusting. It's not going to be good.
It's yeah. It's gonna be bad. Like really bad.
I'm
Fuck.
telling you, man, the more I talk about this, the more I feel like I'm the Peter Schiff of the healthcare system. Straight
Just
up, dude. I'm
always.
at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, hey, like this
Yeah.
is gonna come
Fair.
down.
Yeah. Fair
It's
enough.
gonna
Yeah.
collapse, and then it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, 2 to 3 years later, like nothing happened, and then it happens 2 or 3 years later. It's like, oh, well, you're 2 3 years early, but it's like, dude, this is something you absolutely want to get ahead of. This is not like you're trying to time a market to make money with houses or something.
Mm-hmm.
This is like healthy people can't get to a hospital. So this is everybody's problem, guys, not just the unhealthy people. It's the healthy people's problem too. Because if your kids can't get to the hospital because heaven forbid you get in a car accident, then what? If a healthy person
Mm-hmm.
has to go to the hospital for any reason outside of your control and you can't because it's a 2 week wait, then what? When there's not enough nurses, then what? When there's not enough supplies because the whole supply chain is not helping the situation either. So I'm just waiting for more data to come out. And it's crazy because I think until we normalize how often data comes out in this stuff, you won't have people like on YouTube talking about it. Like you see all these people talking about like cryptocurrency and finances and the Federal Reserve because all the data is readily available and prevalent, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So you have this really cool outward dissemination of information and it's really helpful. And people are learning quickly and becoming smarter and are privy to the problem, right? But with this, it's still so freaking under wraps, which is odd. It's not under wraps. Like it's obvious what's going on, but without people outwardly talking about it on platforms with actual audiences, this is going to just keep getting worse and worse. So it's crazy. I mean, this is all coming back to the point of just you not finding anything. I don't want us to ramble too much about that, but
Yeah. Yeah. I will. I'm gonna spend another day like going down some absolute rabbit holes because I'm sure I can find something more, but yeah, it's just a joke that it's not there. Um,
mm-hmm. It's honestly a disservice
yeah.
that there's not a higher level of expectation. And maybe it shouldn't be coming from the CDC. I'm not trying to like call out CDC here, but just in general, the healthcare network needs to have an outward conversation
Hmm.
especially considering how close they were to the brink of collapse. That's not acceptable. That we are literally that close away from a collapse if we ever get like really pushed, when it comes to a volume uptick in patients. That's terrible.
Yeah.
It's like riding on ball tires. It's like you're one little rainstorm away from spinning out and killing yourself. That's
Yeah.
the healthcare system right now.
Yeah.
So and it's like
Yeah. It's
leveraging up. It's going to be a worse crash later. It's just like the mortgage-backed securities that we saw that had issues in '08, right? With that system coming to an end. It existed for a while, but the longer it was able to exist, the more leveraged debt was put out there with people with bad credit that shouldn't have been taking on these loans. And then when it did crash, it was really bad, right? So a crash now is bad than one in 5 years, because in 5 years the obesity rate will probably be at 80%. So
yeah.
what happens when 80% of the country can't get insulin and can't be seen because of high blood pressure and can't be seen because of this, and this? What
Yeah.
happens then? Not to mention the impact on businesses, because the employees can't get to work, can't do things. Like this is gonna take everything down, dude. Like the more I think about it, it's kind of like it's like the debt system, right? There's so much more debt in the system, so the Federal Reserve cannot raise interest rates as much, right? A smaller interest rate move is a larger move in retrospect because of the extra debt in the system, right? What Paul Volcker was able to do back then, he would not be able to do now, right? And
Hmm.
Powell knows this. So it's just crazy, man, because I just think honestly we're way ahead of the time when it comes to this conversation. And honestly, if we were to have this in front of any like actual group, we'd be just demolished. We'd be deleted. Like part of me wishes I was more upfront about the conversation I wanted to have when I was in front of that nurses convention in upstate New York when I had my corporate health and wellness company. And I was
Hmm.
speaking with the doctor. I had a doctor on staff with me, and we were speaking about sustainability and conscious food choices. And I had to kind of tailor, I had to kind of dance around things. Now, if I had a secondary time to do that over again, it would just be the most brutal thing on the planet, you know. But
Hmm.
I don't know if anybody would be okay with hearing these things and actually do anything with it, you know.
Hmm.
So it's tough, man. Because
Yeah. Somebody probably needs to go in there and just let it fly, though. Kind of like you were saying,
who's going to be that
like
martyr?
you were saying
Who's going
earlier.
to be willing to delete themselves?
Yeah.
It's got to be someone like Richard that's just so well off that it doesn't
Yeah.
matter, because you
Yeah.
literally have to be a martyr. Like, do you want everybody to hate you? Check. Do you want
Yeah.
everybody to be pissed off because you're bringing up something that's undeniably true and is being ignored, but they don't want to deal with it? Check.
Yeah.
Do you want to go against a huge machine that is the healthcare industry in America that makes a ton of freaking money that you're essentially
Hmm.
trying to bring down? Double check.
Yeah.
Like, this is a lose, lose, lose situation. You have to really care about people, which I will be that person that will do this at some point. I'm preparing to be that person. But
Yeah.
there's no one out there that I see right now doing it. You can't blame people. They got families, they got things to do, they got other priorities. They don't want to die in that hill, man, for America. So, like I've said to you, man, like COVID definitely put people to sleep versus bringing more awareness to the problem. And unfortunately, just like they did in '08, right, they kind of printed money and got us out of that situation only to have it bigger and more difficult now, where crazier measures are going to have to be taken now, like a federal, digital currency, hyperinflation, all this stuff, and a lot of pain and suffering, because we can't have that conversation now when it comes to obesity and the healthcare system and the layering of all this. It's going to be a much bigger problem later. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be way bigger, and it's going to impact everybody immensely, and it's going to
Hmm.
piss off and annoy a lot of people. I mean, if
Yep.
Americans aren't already aware, I think we talked about the healthcare cost increase like 25% this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we want free healthcare. Guys, what? These businesses don't have a responsibility to take care of a growingly expensive customer
Yeah.
base. There is responsibility on us as people to stay healthy.
Hmm.
We are not Switzerland. We are not these other countries. We are a very different situation here. So notice even in the healthcare setup, we can't even have an honest conversation there because it's so one-sided. oh, we just
Yeah.
need free healthcare. It's like, guys,
Yeah.
that's not how this is going to go down. Plus, America is very unique with its just, plethora of people and the unique dynamics of the kind of people here and all of the different states. None of this is going to work the way people think. It's like we're
Yeah.
one of the most expensive countries ever because we're one of the most unhealthy countries ever. And there's some
Yeah.
other countries that ain't far behind. There's some
True.
other countries that I think we saw were very, very surprising. Some of them third world that were having obesity hit pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and it's going to follow suit everywhere. America's going to be the first mover in that sense.
I hope we are, man. I hope we are because we kind of have to be if we want to
Well, yeah,
keep.
yeah, for sure.
And that's the thing is how long can modern medicine hold on? How long can it hang on and keep people floating around? I mean, shoot, dude, think about it. There's one other virus that comes through with a 99.8% survival rate. The second one, when the healthcare system's already still taxed now with what's going on, with another one that's 99.8% survival rate,
Mm-hmm.
we're probably done for. And by that, I mean the economy's done for, which means everything's done for.
Yeah. Yeah,
If we couldn't handle 99.8% survival rate because of pre-existing health conditions, which is the facts, which have been largely proven over 2.5 years now, after all
mm-hmm.
this has gone down, we can't handle anything even remotely below that on a survival rate. What if we got a 95% survival rate?
Yeah.
That's it, man. That's all she wrote.
Yeah, it's freaky to think. Yeah, like when you put it this way, it is freaky to think about how fragile it is, and to like not be super like kind of doomsday or Peter
Yeah,
Schiff as you put about, as you said about it.
100%.
And the I only really see two reasons behind like why this data is either missing or gate kept. It's either just like incompetence, which I think is probably the most or
Likely.
the most likely, or like the simplest answer, the most likely, or there's something like actually nefarious going on where it's being withheld for like I don't like I can't speculate from there, but there might be some specific reason it's being withheld by the powers that be. Um, yeah, so hopefully it's just fucking incompetency, which is very likely. But
Yeah.
yeah, what I another day or maybe another 2 days, maybe I'll reach out to some people and try and figure out like where they're sourcing some of their data from. Maybe they have like insider access or like maybe it's like only released to yeah, I don't really this is yeah, giving the benefit of the doubt to a lot of people. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, man. I see some comments here. I'm just reading through some of them.
yeah, I saw we've got so one of the things that got turned on recently if you're tuning in is you're able to join the channel as a member now. So Sasha became a YouTube member. I don't know what date this got. Maybe you've already seen this for a couple of streams on Discord Syndicate. But
Mhm.
you can become a member, and it looks like you get some special options inside a chat, and everything goes straight back into the channel. So I think it's a I didn't notice what the subscription was, $5 a month or something to join as a member. So Sasha, thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. We got a few other guys. We got Crispy, DMT. Uh, yeah, Sasha was saying Elon Musk could be our sacrificial lamb to push healthcare into the forefront. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's pretty busy that motherfucker.
Yeah, he's super busy, man. I don't, you know, and that's I think he made a good comment about the Sense Foundation. That's super helpful. But
Hmm.
also what's super helpful too is keeping smart people like Elon, Richard around. And if they knew some of the skill sets they need to know, so that way preventatively we can keep them for an extra 5 years on top of what the Sense is doing. That's also good, right? That's also good. And maybe, that could help them you know, operate on an even more effective wavelength too. Because yeah,
Hmm.
obesity does hit people in various ways that kills their effectiveness in some capacity. Not that they're not already incredibly successful. Nobody's doubting that. It's just, we could still have them stay around potentially longer. I mean, if I had to reduce the risk of Richard's ability to contract anything like, being pre-diabetic, whatever, I would rather him not be that than be that, right? And keep him around longer in a better state while the Sens does what they do, of course. I'm a fan of both of those things, but I don't necessarily have faith in the private sector for actually doing what they need to do to essentially kill the sector. Most of it, right? A big part of
Mhm.
it is cyclical based healthcare.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of money in that. And if we were to actually do what we need to do, a lot of that money would go away, which I think is a good thing because then we can focus our time and effort on other things. I think obesity is a pointless thing that nobody should have to deal with, and it is an extra negative externality in everybody's life if it's prevalent. And it's not necessarily it's not a good thing on paper. It's black and white. It's not something that's helpful in many ways, especially as it hits our youth as well. So all that being said, I essentially agree with what you're saying, Sasha, with having other aspects of private healthcare push things, but I just don't see enough in there that's like think about it. Healthcare does not update their worldview. Look at the tech sector, right? You have Apple, you have Google, you have Twitter, you have all these companies that are constantly innovating and updating, right? You have the chip sector, you have all these cool technological based companies that are always adapting and innovating and are super competitive, right? What has the healthcare industry done outside of reactionary based healthcare, right? In terms of medication, treating disease, et cetera. What has it done for preventative to update its worldview to hopefully eradicate the even need for it in the future? There's been no update in worldview from doctors or dietitians in what, maybe 40 years? Not one updated worldview that I've seen. Even though culture continues to change, expectations, even though not recommendations from doctors and dietitians, continue to change, right? What a doctor and dietitian recommend does not fit in the cultural climate, does not fit in the infrastructural landscape of where people are getting their food and drink options now. Activity levels are not where they used to be. There's been no updated worldview. There's been no change in the product. It is the same thing we were being jammed down our throats. So,
Mhm.
unfortunately, I don't have a lot of confidence in the ability of the private sector in healthcare specifically to innovate. I think there's a lot of red tape that people are unaware of, unfortunately.
Yeah, man. Nothing I can name specifically. Yeah, really good point. Um, Obviously there's a shit ton of like R&D going on, but the incentives, like a lot of the outcomes can be explained by like the current incentives.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there, yeah, I honestly, yeah, don't know the answer. I agree here that education is the answer. It's just like it's a freaking, it's just a manpower issue and a time issue. Like this is one of the things that I think we said when you and I first met. It's like we need people out there like in the trenches, like doing this kind of shit, and like actually getting some ears and some eyes and some clicks.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm trying to look for like the just like news, like literally the goal of these news articles to get clicks, and it's absolute trash.
Yeah, there's nothing to follow. There's
It's
nothing like
just
if I wanted to do an update weekly on this stuff, I can't even do it because nobody cares to report on it. Like unless I know a doctor or have inside information from a hospital on, hey, what's the projected obesity rate for incoming patients? What
mhm,
is the what is the downtime now for wait times? What is your projected, what's your projections for the next 5 years? Do hospitals even have that?
yeah,
Do you even have a plan if there's another virus that comes around at a 99.8% survival rate? What do? Or do you just flop over and that's it? There's like no communication about this, right? But the
yeah,
Federal Reserve is held under a little microscope and everybody has all the information. We can talk about it and everybody's so aware, which is good. But with this stuff, it's like the most taboo, under the cover, dude behind the green curtain
yeah,
kind of crap. This is the shit that like should not be acceptable. If we're going to hold the healthcare industry to such a high standard and let them get away with being the only people to have a voice in the space, i.e., doctors and dietitians, they need to be better. They need to care more. Because from my perspective, all they care about doing is making money, honestly. Because I see some crazy stuff being told to patients and my clients all the freaking time. It's so all over the place with the quality, the level of quality that you can get from an MD or a dietitian. And it's not me just talking shit on them, right? It's
mhm,
just if that's going to be our only source, it needs to be good
yeah,
because a 70% obesity rate, which is my guess where we're at right now, it's not good. What they've been doing for 20 years has not been working. If anything, it's made it worse. That's unacceptable. People don't like the Federal Reserve allowing an inflation rate above 5%. Cool. 70% obesity rate is also not cool.
Yeah.
Also not acceptable, guys. We should probably bring that down. So preventatively speaking, the economy doesn't collapse. And obviously people don't die. But there is no microscope for that. I hope it works out. Think about
Yeah.
like that
And
level. It doesn't make sense.
yeah, and basically, yeah, farming the system for profits.
Oh yeah, cyclical base, in and out all the
Yeah.
time. Hey, you should probably go eat healthy and be more active, but you are pre-diabetic. We're going to put you on this medication if you don't get under control. Talk to you
Hmm.
later. And
Yeah. Yeah,
the
I do think like the incentives are I think pretty good in like the development pipeline, but then
mhm.
when it gets to the like prescription part, it just it falls apart. It becomes it yeah, I don't have the answer. Like one of the comments up here is like about the free healthcare. Like
Mhm.
everyone hears free healthcare or universal healthcare and it's like, "Oh yeah, let's do that. That would be good. That would be so nice." Like it's free healthcare, yeah,
Not
is
going to be
not
nice.
it's not the answer. Like yeah, it sounds like that term sounds great. Universal healthcare or free healthcare sounds great.
Yeah, it's like
It's not really the outcome. It's just like what the current admin gets to tout as I don't know, like their fucking
mhm.
accomplishments, and it's like, you can call it that, but it's not really the way it's fucking working.
Yeah.
So,
Plus, they don't understand what has to happen for that to exist.
mhm,
Right? The
yeah,
quality of care will have to come down, the wait times will have to come up, and
yeah,
it doesn't fix the fact that you're going to have situations where free won't actually be free.
yeah,
And ignoring again why the prices have gone up now.
yeah,
It's like, oh, we don't want high inflation, so we need to fix that. And it's like,
mhm,
well, then people get pissed off when the economy crashes because like this has happened every time. And now people are becoming more aware of that so they can plan and prepare, right? So they're understanding this more, but there's like no transparency. There is
yeah,
no level of credibility. There's no, and this is like just as high up is what the Federal Reserve is doing. This
oh yeah,
affects everybody's well-being, even
yeah,
more so sometimes than a freaking inflation rate. Don't
yeah,
get me wrong, obviously that does, but if so and so is going to die because they're going to have high blood pressure, to me it's a little bit more important than the gallon of milk costing $2 more. You think? I
mhm,
don't know. I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. I
yeah, yeah,
really freaking do, bro, because this is the kind of stuff that people don't want to talk about. I'm like, listen, guys, you ignore this long enough, and it's going to be so much in your freaking face that everything in your life turns off. Period. And more people are starting to realize that. It hasn't hit. I'm telling you, people got worried with COVID. That is nothing. I'm telling you, when you go to the hospital and you really need to go and it's a 2 to 4 week wait and you're going to die because of it,
yeah,
then people will be like, oh shit. And then you're going to be all this finger pointing. It's going to be terrible.
yeah,
And
yeah, and we honestly like already kind of have people dying in lines waiting.
I've heard
So,
some pretty atrocious things right now um, from people waiting at hospitals and stuff,
mhm,
you know? And, I don't think it's quite as bad as it was during COVID, of course, because that
yeah,
was the worst we've ever seen it. But it shows how quickly things will fall apart.
yeah, and like just one little bump in the road, one
Mm-hmm.
could yeah trigger a huge fucking issue, obviously. Yeah, so Sasha is in Australia. I'm in Canada, so we also have a government that says, or like that's one of their big claims to fame is universal or free healthcare. And there are yeah, there's pros and cons to both systems, I find. It's just like no one provides any nuance. They just get up on their pedestal and like, hey, we're gonna give you free healthcare because we care about you. It's like
Yeah.
you don't know what that means.
Or what the
Like
quality means,
that is not what that means.
on
But
both sides, even like
yeah,
pay doesn't mean it's good just because you're paying for it
yeah,
over here on our side. And it's healthier people are still having to pay a shit ton of money because once again, as that shift happens, right? We went from a 20% obesity rate to almost probably 60% is like a safe bet, I would say at this point, 60% obesity rate. And it's like, guys, that's more leverage on the system. We're not building more hospitals that fast. we're deficient in people filling roles like nursing techs and nurses and doctors themselves. I had a client literally a couple weeks ago said they had to wait 4 months to get in with a doctor. 4 months. So you better hope nothing goes down. I'm hoping nothing goes down because I'm not confident I'm going to be even seen.
Yep.
So as there's more leverage in the system, just like with financial systems, when something breaks, it's a bigger lever. Just like with ETH going down harder than Bitcoin, and then altcoins going down harder than ETH, it's connected.
Mm-hmm.
So we're propping up a system that can barely handle what it's taking on, and it's slowly taking on more water. And that big wave will come that will push it over. Hopefully it doesn't. I don't want this stuff to happen, but I do think things need to get worse before they can get better. So that's why we do this show, Hexikins, for you guys to and take a look at our early episodes. We talk about this all the time, where we kind of cover more of the basics as it pertains to understanding these things, like tracking calories, understanding energy balance, how to make this work in your lifestyle from a psychological aspect, how to build a good relationship with data, charting, and numbers like we do with finance. Do it with food,
Mm-hmm.
because dude, your health is it, man. Doesn't matter what the chart does if your health ain't there, man. Hex could go to $400, and we've already had some Hexikins go through some rough health issues if you're on
Yep.
Twitter.
Yep.
So money don't mean shit if you're in a hospital. I've had plenty of very well-off clients who do not care about money anymore because they
Yeah.
have health concerns. Very well off. So obviously you want both. You want to be healthy and you want to crush it. Well, guys, we're in Hex. We're early. You're going to crush it if you're smart with Hex. Health, not so guaranteed. Most people have no idea what they're doing.
Yep. It's a bit of a fucking roll the dice, but you do have control over, I would say, like the probabilities of that outcome. So yeah, just like you were saying over here, Sasha, like some of our earlier episodes are literally just educational that allow you to take control and ownership over the direction of the most likely outcome of your own health. If you know just like some of these very like it's not that difficult. It's not rocket science. There's a few very, very fundamental tenets, fundamental principles and working assumptions that we base a whole bunch of like our theories or our I guess like our framework off of. And if you can understand those, you can basically build it however you want, as long as you're adhering to those underlying fundamentals. So yeah, like Ryan was saying, a few of those episodes at the start can get you set up to or get you to a place where you can actually design a lifestyle that leads to that more than likely will lead to a healthy outcome. There are some people that get dealt a shitty hand, and even if they were doing all the right things, some bad things can happen. But do you want to take that chance, or do you want to make it less likely that bad things will happen? So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I will definitely go look into this as part of my research when I go deep diving into some US and even Canadian stats, because yeah, I'd like to have some of those
I
for
just
sure.
looked at their obesity rate for Swiss healthcare. And it has gone up really aggressively very recently in the past couple of years, but they were since like 2015 or up until 2015 one of the lowest obesity rates in the EU in general, which go figure. Um, but whatever they were doing right, they aren't anymore because they're close to 50%. But these are for guys, it's 50%. Girls, it's 30% of them are obesity or are obese right now. So that system is probably feeling the pain already, even with a much smaller population and way less like issues in general, right? Like you
Hmm.
remember, the United States is 50 little baby countries that are all their own issues, political issues, different cultures. Like the U.S. is such a hodgepodge, in that way. And there's pros and cons that come with it, but that's why it's like you can't really compare a country that small like Switzerland to the US as a system that works or doesn't work, because the system is operating in an environment that's totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. So you got to keep that in mind. It's not that we don't want to pay attention to these things. Like if there's a country that was really doing well with obesity, I would say, cool, that would make sense to take a look at. Even if it's different, I would like to see what things are doing, although it probably wouldn't surprise me what they're doing. But honestly, every country's getting wrecked right now. Like if we were to equate obesity to somebody getting rug pulled, every country is getting rug pulled right now or is in the process. Look at the obesity rate of Switzerland, I just looked and it's like up almost double in the past 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Once again, not including 2021 and 2022. So
Yeah. Fuck.
I don't think there's going to be any real like clear winners here. I would be surprised. I mean, when you see low income countries like India is one of the highest obesity percentages, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he mentioned Japan. You know, Asia is a
Yeah.
very interesting one. They have such a different culture. I feel like they would be a bit more steadfast to it. Um,
Yeah. They
but even
usually
then,
have good mortality rates and obesity rates, I think. I just quickly looked up like mortality or so life expectancy, and it's Hong Kong, Japan, number one and number
yeah,
two.
they got a lot more walking over there. A lot better food choices overall for the most part. Their culture is probably the biggest factor, to be honest with you. And they're about half the obesity rate of America,
Yeah.
give or take, right around there. So that makes sense.
And then the lowest obesity rate, I don't know what fucking website this is, but it says Vietnam. Don't know
It's crazy.
if that's true or not, but I'd say that's a pretty good friggin' rant to start us off there, Ryan. Hey,
Yeah, it's been 46 minutes. Shit,
yeah,
man.
lol.
Um,
We do have chatting with the captain coming on here in
yeah,
15 minutes. So let's maybe talk about our setup for the new format
sure.
that we're gonna try to run. Well, it's gonna be pretty loosey goosey, I think. Like if we get some questions from you guys, or if we're talking about, especially if we're going through, this is practically what I'm gonna call our recap. We're gonna try and have some segments basically moving forward where we do a little recap. We like both Ryan and I. Ryan especially has some expertise talking about macros and markets, so I like to pick his brain there. We usually have some good chats talking about forex or oil stuff. Each week we'll also try to have a health and fitness topic that we cover, and then a Q&A before we end. So I'll call that part of our recap. And then I was just going to mention the last time we talked, the US dollar, so kind of basically setting up our macros and markets, which will follow. The USD and euro was just hitting parity. At
Mm,
that point in time, we were awaiting inflation
mhm,
data. We were still awaiting GDP data, and the FOMC meeting was coming up a couple weeks later, so we were awaiting their decision about rate hikes.
mhm,
Um,
mm,
the one thing I'm going to bring up that I think will be a fun thing to kind of look at month over month. We're going to be here at the start of every month, each Monday to start off your month. So come on back, start your month off right with us, see what's going on with the markets, what's going on with Hex, and what's going on with a specific health topic. The couple metrics that I think I'm going to follow month over month, and I'm open to following many of them, is number one, how much a T-share costs. So back on July 11th, when we talked last, a T-share was 22,000 Hex. And guess what? Hex is still working. However many days, we're probably close to day 1,000, day 973. There you go. So T-share rate is increasing as expected. T-shares, this is pretty interesting. Our T-shares are kind of stalling out. July 11th, there were 10,000 or 10,427,000 T-shares out there that people owned, paying them Hex every single day.
mhm.
Today, 10,433,000. So pretty darn similar. We saw a couple days here where there was a ton of T-shares minted. So people depositing their Hex, or technically burning their Hex in the contract to create their own T-shares, their portion of the pie that's paying them yield, trustless yield, where you get to hold your keys every single day. So people taking advantage of the low Hex price, in my opinion, to gain and accrue some T-shares.
Yeah.
Next one, average stake length is I think the last one that I have written down that I really like to watch. And the average stake length is again also kind of staying flat. On July 11th, it was 6.56 years. That's still crazy. And about 3 weeks later, there's 6.52 years. So not huge moves going on here, but it has been kind of like noticeably just like slowly dropping over time. We've been watching this, and I'm ready to see this flatten out and start going back up soon as we start to really turn around.
Yeah.
And I think that's my last little recap before we move into macros and markets, we can probably spend 5 minutes macros and markets, and then we'll spend 5 minutes on the health and fitness topic.
I'll be quick. We'll be quick.
Yeah, we shall be quick.
Let's pull up the Dixie that I have up here real quick. Super
Alrighty,
fast in this one. So
bring it
Powell
up.
Powell came on to talk about a 75 basis point rate hike again, right? That was kind of understood that that was going to be the case, and that's what they
Hmm.
decided on. The one key takeaway from this meeting, guys, if you watched it, was that they said one key item, and that gave the markets and the bond market everything they needed to know. The bond market's already been pricing this in, but what he said was that they're no longer on cruise control for rate hikes, which is what the market was expecting. Like they're just going to keep raising, raising, raising. And they don't care really what the data does. They're just trying to get inflation down. Now, moving forward, they are going to be data driven. That key phrase and line was everything people needed to see and hear to think, okay, moving forward, they're going to be data driven. And guess what? The data is terrible. Everything outside of like the labor market, which is a lagging indicator in recession, people forget labor market in terms of unemployment claims are always in a good spot, give or take, when a recession starts or is midway, and then they get worse and worse towards the end of it. But the point is once the markets got word from Powell at that meeting that they're going to be data driven moving forward, it was risk on all day. And then you saw that the Dixie here on the daily, right when that market meeting happened, right here, look at this, boom, things just rallied the whole week last week, right? Just rallied the whole week. This Dixie coming down. We saw Bitcoin rally. We saw risk on assets, tech, and crypto go up. Do I think Hex had,
Hmm.
any like connection to all this? No, honestly, I do think Hex is going to decorrelate here pretty soon. It's going to be freaking fantastic. I think we're already seeing aspects of that. I do think Hex has seen a bottom at 0.028. I don't think it's going to go below that, regardless of what happens geopolitically. There's just too much from onboarding and the social aspect growing, and we're too close to pulse chain. I do think Hex is not going to go lower, but outside of that, we saw this big pullback over the past 5 to 6 days from the Dixie, showing that the markets thought that that was going to be the case, and they're basically calling Powell's bluff. They're basically saying, "Listen, the data is going to be terrible. You can't keep increasing. You can't keep doing it. There's just no way you're going to keep doing it." And the bond market is also pricing that in too. So things to keep an eye out for. It'll be really interesting to see what happens here over the next few months, because I think we called that August was going to be the last rate hike
Yeah, that's right. I guess our
before
next
things really
meeting,
break.
though isn't until September, I think it is.
Which is good, because I think they're not really looking at hikes until September potentially. Actually, I got to look back at that. I think they're not doing another. They're not looking at it because we're gonna have a ton of information out by then, and likely a heads up on what real second quarter GDP is, because it came in negative, of course, and they're probably going to
Hmm.
revise it a couple times. And we are already getting estimates from the Atlanta Fed of what next quarter's GDP is going to look like, and I do have a feeling that's going to be negative as well. So we're
Hmm.
looking for inflation to cool off and peak. I would take, this is my final call, I would take the fact that they're not going to increase at 75. Anything below that is a sign of pivoting. It's a sign of we know we can't go as high
Yeah.
because they're at the break point.
Yep.
They're between a rock and a hard place. This is where the cookie crumbles. So August, September, October, I think is my prediction of when those 3 months is when Pulse Chain's going to launch. October, November, right around there.
Hmm.
I don't think Richard's going to wait for a bottom of Bitcoin because he doesn't need it to. Hex is going to already be in a massive uptrend before he launches Pulse Chain. I think it'll be like 10 to 16 cents by the time he launches Pulse Chain or announces the launch. And we're going to be flying as Bitcoin is capitulating. I'm serious. I think that's how it's going to go down.
Hmm.
Because everybody's waiting for Bitcoin to capitulate to try to buy more Hex and think that's going to pull Hex along with it. I don't think it's
Yeah,
going to happen.
it's
Calling it
true.
right now. Don't think it's going to happen.
Well,
So,
that's a fun call. I like that.
I
Yeah. So
think
when
everybody and the mother is waiting for that.
yeah, so we were waiting for the inflation data. It came out at 9.1% versus 8.6 the month before. We'll get more inflation data for July in like 10 days here. August 10th,
Mm-hmm.
it's set to come out. So
Mm-hmm.
next week on Wednesday already. Um, I'm fairly certain we're still going to be running hot. I'm not convinced that it's going to be going down yet.
Yeah, the key is
If
does it come down a little bit, like by 0.1, 0.2
right,
to signal that it's peaked? Because
yeah,
if it goes up again by like 0.2, markets aren't going to like that.
yeah. Like if May, like I think it's going to be somewhere in this range, man. Like 8.5, 8.6. It's going to be somewhere in here.
Oh,
Like
for
May,
sure, it's still going to be high. But if it comes
it's
in low like that, and I say low relatively, if it comes in below 9.1, that is all the Fed's looking for to see that it's coming back down to bring it
mm,
back into their target range. If it goes even a hair higher, like 9.2, the markets are going to freaking hate that.
and then they can get on their pedestal and say that what they've done and their expertise and the levers that they've turned have worked and
Yeah.
where they have inflation under control, yada yada
Two
yada.
levers.
We've heard it
One of them
all.
they haven't even started using yet. They haven't even really started selling
Yeah,
assets off their balance sheet.
yeah, yeah. The balance sheet is actually like when they said that they were going to start selling. I think they at the same like they did start selling, but they also started buying something else. I was reading who the fuck what the fuck was I reading? I was reading Arthur Hayes. You read his blog at all?
Uh-uh.
It's really really good, but he's like an in-depth like who the fuck did he work for? He
It's
worked
come
in
down a
MOF.
little bit. I'll take the L. It's come down. So it went from
Came down a little bit.
8.965 trillion
Hmm.
in April. As of end of July, it was 8.89 trillion.
Yeah. Fuck.
So it came down $100 billion.
Yeah. So I do think they
Not
were
even.
selling, but then they also started buying foreign bonds, I think.
Oh my god.
So
So they've just flatlined. They haven't really actually
yeah.
started selling yet.
Yeah, it like ended up being neutral or potentially like even more. I don't. I'd have to read it again. He's really, really nuanced, and he's been in like the deep, deep markets for a long time. He's the founder of BitMEX or ex-founder. He got in a bunch of trouble. He might have even went to jail. I don't know. Anyways, a whole bunch of people in the crypto space follow him for like his trading calls and kind of like his macro outlook on crypto and shit.
I'll have to give him
He's
a
really, yeah,
listen.
he's got a great blog. Arthur Hayes, I'm not sure what he might just go by Arthur Hayes on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, our GDP, yeah, we're waiting on kind of a like you said a revision. So we'll get a
Mhm.
revision or an updated estimate to our second quarter GDP come August 25th. Like you said, two negative quarters in a row. And the one thing I have jotted down on my notes here is just like recession, lol,
Yeah.
because it's just become a meme now. It's like, okay, like literally everyone and their mother, including this administration, before this quarter would have agreed that 2 quarters of negative GDP growth equals recession. Like, no worries. Like, it's not really that big of a fucking deal to just label it as a recession. Like,
Yeah.
that's your working definition. Like, who the fuck cares? But now, like all these talking heads are like, well, actually, if you look at the some prominent economists, they don't go by that. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Perception is the biggest deal it's ever been in our
Oh,
entire time
it's
being around.
man,
It's all about perception right now.
it's just tiresome like government framing and misdirection. It's like, guys, it is a recession. Fine. If you want to talk about the job market as well, also talk about the job market. Like just call it's yeah, it just pisses me off. And I'm like I agree both admins would probably do it. So I'm not saying it's just this admin, but I'm not a huge government fan. It's just like fuck. Like be consistent. If you're gonna use that as the working definition, which you have for forever, use it.
To
Let's
be
do it.
fair, if Trump tried to reestablish what a recession was as a definition, he would be crucified by the
Oh,
media.
yeah, that is also
Because
pretty
he'd
funny
probably be
thing to
dumb and
highlight.
blame it on Putin or the COVID
Yeah,
pandemic or whatever, which
yeah.
is just as equally incorrect. But he would get absolutely crucified trying to do that. So it's definitely it's weird times right now, dude. It's weird times. There's so much perception shift that people are kind of being conned into thinking. It
Hmm.
kind of goes back to what we are talking about with the healthcare statistics, man. And that's the thing. It's even more effed up in the healthcare because it's like, guys, in finance they care enough to try to persuade you, right, about inflation, about the economy, about geopolitical situations, right? The healthcare industry, they don't give a shit about you. They don't
Mm-hmm.
care. They just want to make money off you. They don't care. They literally are like point blank telling you, we don't care. We don't even care if the system is at risk of breaking. It's blatant disregard for what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Just like what was going on with the what are they freaking called? The arm mortgages, right? The adjustable rate mortgages going on.
Mm-hmm.
Blatant disregard and not
Yeah.
care. I mean, just watch The Big Short if you haven't. It's a great movie, but
Yeah.
blatant disregard. And think about who suffered and how many people lost their livelihoods in their homes.
Yeah.
This is blatant disregard that will go down in history books in the healthcare system in America because
Mm-hmm.
it's absurd. And they don't even care enough to try to persuade you. They're just like, we don't give a shit, man. It's obvious. Here's the
Mm-hmm.
numbers. Yeah, it's real bad. What are you going to do about it? We don't care.
Yeah.
That's literally what they will tell you. If they even talk to you. How long does your doctor actually talk to you for? 5 minutes?
Yeah.
And looks
If
at a
that.
health chart that you can't even see?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. I mean, as long as he gets a paycheck and goes home. Once again, I'm not putting this whole problem on doctors. But
They're trying to pay off their loans.
yeah, they're just as much stuck,
So it's
man.
like, fair
So it
enough.
just kind of goes to show there is no entity that can really fix this outside of people very high in power, and if that ain't happening, they don't care. But when the
Yep.
system finally does collapse, they will care, and there'll be a ton of finger pointing, and there will be a fall guy.
Yeah.
I don't know who, but there will be someone. So
Yeah.
it's not gonna be a fun day, man. I know we gotta get going though for RG, but
Yep.
good
We are
stuff.
at 7:01. So next time we'll get to. I'll even drop. I didn't have slides prepared. I was just gonna kind of share a whiteboard and talk and draw. So I'll prepare some slides. I'll go old school on
Old
these.
school slide
Old school on these rules
stream.
again, and we'll talk about pre-workout, intra-workout, and post-workout nutrition in the health and fitness segment. And usually we'll try to leave some time for questions. Today
Yeah,
we're cutting it right at the top of the hour in preparation for RG and chatting with the captain. So if you're here now, he'll be going live right away. If you're just tuning in for us, just a reminder that we are going to be here once monthly from here on out. That's every Monday or the first Monday of every single month, 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Um, we'll advertise for that, and please post some questions on the Twitter or come in here, and we will dedicate some time to answering questions.
absolutely.
Other than that, we'll send you on your way to chatting with the captain, and we will catch you guys next time.